The Legion, once upon a time, was basically hardened criminals in uniform.
And a
And
lot of it still is.
so those
Yeah,
stories were that like a lot of like after World War I and even World War II, the ranks would swell up a bit, sometimes because some unsavory types were avoiding maybe war crimes trials back home,
yeah,
or
yeah,
and a lot of those guys ended up fighting like the Viet Minh in Vietnam. So
yeah,
talk about a colorful conflict. Like these are like some of these guys come from all over the world, fighters, prisoners, convicts,
mhm,
war criminals, and then they're dropped in, places like on like the Laotian border and shit, fighting
yeah,
like Ho Chi Minh's early, commando. And it's just like,
yeah,
but it was, the reputation was like blasted out of these conflicts that were so colorful and unique that you can't help but be like awestruck by this
yeah.
unit's history. And I don't know if it's like that now. I mean, they took you, but they had to have some sense that this guy, I mean, I can tell by talking to you, this guy has an idea what's going to go down. This is a
Yeah.
good candidate. But do they still take everyone? Do they still like, could you open up like Terminal Island and get a bunch of cadets, or how does it go? How
You
strict
know,
are they?
I mean, 1 out of 15 who, like I said, who knock on the door get selected.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just to give you a rough number.
Yeah.
Now, what's going to help? They want either really young guys who they can coach up and indoctrinate in and get under their thumb, or older guys who have experience. That's generally, and they might filter in some guys in the middle there, but that's, I would say, 50 to 60, maybe 70% of guys have prior military experience in their home countries.
Mm-hmm. Now you're a self-described artist with the hardware.
Yeah.
With a gun in your hand, you're like a modern day Picasso.
That's
Um,
a savant with that AR.
yeah, yeah. You've got your skill set, and your reputation hangs on it. But did you overall enjoy your time in the Legion? Was it
No,
good for you?
no.
No.
Was it good for me? Yes.
Yeah.
Did I enjoy it? No, not absolutely not. Was there cool moments? Absolutely. Was it
Mhm.
a absolutely necessary piece of my story to self-actualize? Yes. I
Yeah.
needed that time to mature. I needed that time to get clear, to sit in silence and self-reflection for years, and to really strip it down. I mean, you're washing your clothes in the sink, right?
Yeah.
You're washing you're stripped down and alone and cold and not understanding why the fuck you're getting yelled at and shit like that. And I needed that. I needed that for my soul. And so looking back, I'm really glad I did it. It opened up my international perspective also. Just meeting, I have friends from Greece, Ukraine, Romania, Hungary,
Mhm.
Laos, Vietnam, Thailand, everywhere you could possibly, every country in South America, many in Africa. So that was fascinating in the sense that being the only American there, really, one
Right.
of them
Right.
that was in my unit was, it was eye opening because you see people who really grow up tough, man. They
Yeah.
grew up poor, grew up tough, and that really that bleeds into you because you really realize what's important,
No, there's a
what you
big
need.
diff. Yeah, there's a huge difference between like growing up California poor and then growing up like in the
Yeah,
streets of
yeah,
like,
yeah. Ukraine, right?
yeah.
On the eastern Ukraine, poor is a different kind of poor than. Yeah, I grew up with a single mom in Southern California.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different. So, but you know what? What's interesting is once you put on that Legion flag, nobody gives a shit.
Right.
Nobody gives a shit about your socioeconomic status. Nobody gave a fuck I was a SEAL, right? I mean, it was kind of cool. Some guys liked it and they asked questions, but nobody really gives a fuck. They're like, what can you do now? That's all that matters. What can you do now? And are you a good teammate?
And that,
Can I trust you?
yeah, and that's what I love about it is that second chance of the past, does good or bad, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. It's
Yeah.
today
Good
forward.
or
And I
bad.
love that aspect of it. It's like, all right, so you were a cannibal in the streets of Prague as a poor kid. Now
Yeah.
you're you know, now
Yeah.
you're going to be a part of something special. And it does have some mysticism around it, even
Yeah.
still.
Yeah, it
Um,
does.
and you yourself are like exactly that kind of guy. Like you've got a book coming out,
Mm.
and And I'm sure people cannot wait for it because the stories you've lived are like almost if I hadn't talked to you and met you, people at Warner Brothers would question if the guy was created. Like if we didn't have Kavanaugh, we would have to
Yeah.
build him,
Yeah.
you know. But you've lived this stuff and now you're in the Legion. Now give me two or three other real interesting Legionnaire types who you were like really curious about. Like, wow, this
Yeah.
guy, who are some of these guys that were in your platoon or your regiment that you're like, damn, this dude.
Yeah. So a guy from Belarus, give you one guy, blonde, real about my similar build,
Mm-hmm.
and was an engineer in Belarus. Also was in their military and their like special police.
Right.
And you could tell immediately once you picked up a gun was good. He was promoted really quickly. Him and I got really close. I had some pictures of him and I in the jungle together. It was cool because he was very similar to me in that we saw a lot of the bullshit for what it was. Right. We had both been to the puppet show and seen all the strings. So it wasn't like a lot of frazzling. We were about the same age. So that was cool to connect with the guy because we could barely speak the same language. Right. And we
Mm-hmm.
had this catch-all, but we totally understood each other for years. For years we would sit and speak in this broken catch-all language of French, and became really close like that. Him teaching me some Russian, I'm teaching him some English. That cool dynamic, talking about our own lives and how we can communicate, and still being able to joke and stuff in a different language. That was cool. Also, an interesting on the other side of it, a guy that was very unassuming, a small Asian kid that spoke with a better American accent than me. And I was like, and he's from South Korea, and he taught himself English. He was in the South Korean military, was in intelligence, worked with a lot of special force units, Green Berets and stuff in South Korea, taught himself English just off video games, spoke perfect English, loved American culture. And him and I got really close because we were in the boot camp phase together and ended up deploying twice together from the same regiment. He had moved to America, just to give you an example story. Finished the South Korean military, wanted to go to America, wanted his American citizenship, went to America, moved to Kansas because he Googled, one of the least expensive places he could move and go to school. And somebody told him, don't go to Mississippi. So he went to Kansas, and he ran out of money after a couple of years and had been trying to get his green card
Mm-hmm.
to get in the military. He could not get his green card in time. By the time he was running out of money, and he was like, well, I still want to serve. I wanted to be a Special Force Green Beret. Can't do it. So then he joined the French Foreign Legion, and that's where him and I met.
You still keep in contact with these guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Incredible. Yeah. Someone advised him right about, what was it? Mississippi, Missouri.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Simon Williamson. Help us find a cure for NMOSD, neuromyelitis optica spectrum disorder, and with it, cancer. Please go to the Guthrie Jackson Foundation and donate if you can.